All right, everybody, continuing with our installation of the aileron servo. Let me explain what we did here. So we have the Seacraft side mount in place. Initially, I was trying to determine, well, how do I hold this in place to drill the holes properly? And I came up with a great idea of just using good old-fashioned Scotch double-sided tape just to hold it in place so I could go ahead and position it. And this gives me the ability to lift it up and reposition if need be. It worked out perfect. I was able to go ahead and position it properly. And now with just some finagling, a little bit of finagling, it'll drop right in. Now, I know normally probably the best way to do this would have been just to go ahead and epoxy in some hardwood on each end here inside the actual holder, much like you see the parts here and here. Probably better just to put in a hardwood. I don't know how well it would hold against this particular type of plate. You know, it's obviously some type of fiberglass plate, is from what I can see. I'm sure it probably would be okay. But anyway, nonetheless, I wanted to go ahead and try these Seacraft side mount servo holders. And so far, the installation's been really very straightforward, as you can see. So now all we need to do at this point is we're just going to go ahead and create some hard points here, here, and here. And of course, and then we'll need a couple here as well. But anyway, the biggest thing is that so far it's gone very easy. I think what we're going to wind up doing is, even though we're supposed to use 4mm screws at the corners, the type of nut that the designer recommended, I don't have it and I can't find it. I've only found it in 6mm. I can't seem to find it in 4mm. He does usually include it with the kit, but like I said, since I bought this kit secondhand, I think it's missing some hardware here and there. Anyway, nonetheless, so we've got that installed. We're going to do our hard points. We're going to get that taken care of, and once that's in, then that part is done. Then we'll go ahead and we'll replicate the process on the other wing half over there. So, continuing on, more to come. Alrighty, continuing with our update with regards to an installation of the aileron servo. You can see we have our Seacraft side mount servo bracket installed, and both of them have the screws obviously well, we're going to cut the screws flush is what we're going to do with the lock nuts, as you can see here, with a good old just Dremel cutting wheel. So they are installed, and then once we get the screws cut off, then we'll go ahead and, like I said before, we'll focus on getting some hard points added underneath the wing here. At least 4, maybe a couple more, so we can go ahead and bolt and then screw the plate in place. So moving along, more to come. All right, folks, continuing with our update on the installation of the servo for the AirC Race 40% Pond Racer. You can see we've got our plate in place, we've got our holes drilled. One of the reasons I wound up putting 1 down here is that I thought that the 5 would be enough. But without this being down here, this little thing was lifting up, and I could see that being a problem. So just had to put another little piece of wood directly under there. You can see it right there, and then of course a little screw. These are number 2 servo screws, and it's plenty strong. This plate is not going anywhere at all. So all right. So now we're going to go ahead. We're going to take the plate off. We're going to put the servo on the side mount. We're going to attach a push rod, and we're going to go ahead and begin the installation of the control horn itself. We're going to attach the push rod onto the control horn before it's glued in, and this will allow us to get a proper placement this way in relation to the opening, and of course make sure that we have a proper distance in relation to the hinge line, which you can see right down there. It looks like a cracked line, but that's the hinge line. The ball link would line up with the hinge line. So, more to come. All right, so we're continuing with our aileron and control horn, our aileron servo installation and our control horn installation. And I want to show you what the designer had in mind with the push rod. Notice first how the control arm does not come straight up like other aircraft, such as the, for example, here's the Kike aircraft. You can see how the standard servo arm just sticks out the bottom. So here you can see, let me tip this on its side, you can see how it works. It actually comes right up through there, and his thought process was, well, without the arm there, it's a little less drag, which I can see, that would make sense to a point, but it does require a much larger opening here. So I don't know if there's a trade-off for that or not, but I don't know. So far, I have to say I like it with the arm sticking straight up. I think it's a little easier to set up, because anytime you have to remove this arm, you have to remove this whole plate, so it's not exactly the most convenient way. But I am always willing to try new things. So we'll see how this works out. More to come. All right, continuing with our update of the installation of the servo and the control horn for the pond racer. So I figured out the length and the push rod, the length of the push rod you're going to need, as well as the exact clevises. You're going to need to use a Sullivan brand golden connector, okay, for 440 rod. This is a Hanger 9 titanium ProLink 440 3.5 inch, and the ball link is by swbmfg.com. That's swbmfg.com. 440 ball link for 440 rods with a 440 hex screw. And but you could go ahead and Dubro sells these as well, and they're exactly the same, so you could get them directly from Dubro. But that's important, so I wanted you to be aware of that, because the manufacturer was unsure of the length of the rod. He couldn't remember, and I figured it out. The key thing, though, is when you're setting up the rod, notice how the Sullivan clevis here is, golden clevis is fully threaded all the way on, and you can see the ball link is threaded almost all the way on. I think I have to bring it out maybe about one turn, but we're going to go ahead. We've got our slot cut here. You can see exactly how the control horn is positioned. It's just barely at the leading edge of the aileron. That's about as close as you need to get, because you got to keep in mind you've got the trailing edge here of the wing, and you want to make sure that that the edge of this does not come in contact with the edge of that. Now, the way I determine the location is when I had this back in place, like so, okay, what I did is I extended the lines from here all the way back, as you can see, and this side as well, all the way back, all right? And then the spacing for this control horn matches the spacing of the opening here on the servo plate. So it gave a perfect alignment. And so that is the best way of setting up the control horn. And then don't forget that because these control horns extend beyond the base, you do have to go through, and let me see if I can get these out. You have to dig some notches. But you can see the lines I drew here, once again, for the from the plate, the opening in the servo plate going back. So that's how you set that up. All right, we're going to do some, we're going to go ahead and glue these in place with some 30-minute epoxy, and then we're going to let this sit overnight. All right, more to come. Okay, just a second ago, I gave you the configuration for setting up the push rod, and it turns out that configuration is not going to work, and here's why. When I move the stick in this direction, it's fine. No problems whatsoever. But when I go the other way, you can see it's getting caught up. It's not moving all the way because the clevis, not this one, but the goldenrod clevis, is getting caught on the actual servo arm, and that's due to the angle that the push rod is coming out. As you can see, it's probably about a 30 to 35 degree angle. Anyway, so we're going to make two changes. One, we're going to switch to a Great Plains metal 440 push rod that you can see right there. And we're also changing the ProLink from a 3.5 inch to a titanium 3 inch. We're still going to use the SWB ball link. As you can see, that is perfect. That went on there without any problem whatsoever. So we're going to make that quick switch, and then we'll go ahead and see if this works. More to come. All right, continuing with our installation of the aileron servo. So I figured it out. It took a bit of trying, and let me go ahead and show you exactly what I did. Okay, so when you go through and you put the arm on, notice how the servo arm is not exactly at 90. It is just the next spline over. In other words, you have to move it back towards the trailing edge. When you do that, it's perfect. The clevis does not hit the servo arm. So that is the configuration right there that you'll need in order to properly set up the aileron without the clevis hitting the servo arm. All right, so that's done. We're going to mount this in place. We're going to move over to the left wing, and we're going to repeat all the same procedures all over again. All righty, so that is how you set up the ailerons.